Howdy friends, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to learn about wild bergamot. It's finally not raining. I wouldn't say we have perfectly blue skies, but we have something that resembles them. And as a herbalist who runs a clinical practice, I need to work on these days. I kind of joke with my husband and my son that weather dictates my office hours, and it's true. If it's nice, it's sunny, and there's herbs to harvest, I need to get my butt outside. So that's what I've been doing most of the day today. I've already processed some catnip, spearmint, holy basil, and I'm now just about to move on to wild bergamot. And I thought, I haven't filmed about this plant on YouTube. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about it, how I harvest it, some of the challenges of working with wild bergamot, and if you can't find it, the cousin you can use instead. Super quick, friendly reminder, I cannot provide any dosing information about medicines, how to take this, why you should take it, all of those types of things. I can't diagnose, and I can't provide anything that could be interpreted as a treatment protocol. I got rules. Well, I don't have rules. I have rules I have to follow. And because of the platforms I use to share my information, I have to follow those rules. Now, if you want to dive deeper and you want to learn more from me and you want to learn how to formulate and properly dose tinctures and that kind of thing, then you are welcome to check out my membership platform. It's called Weavers of Plant Wisdom. You can check the information in the description box below. If that's not your cup of tea, that's okay too. Why don't you stick around and learn a little bit about wild bergamot? There we are, friends. This is wild bergamot, also known as Monarda fistulosa. For some of my gardeners, you're like, hey, I have one that looks like that, but it's red. That's the spicy cousin. Well, they're both spicy. That's the cousin I was talking about. That would be Monarda didyma, also known as bee balm. And I tend to use them fairly interchangeably in clinic. Now, what's really cool is because, oh my gosh, there's a hummingbird. There's no way. Oh, I didn't get it on camera. Sorry. Squirrel. Because native plants have become kind of trendy, it's actually not too difficult to source Monarda fistulosa seedlings. At least it wasn't for me here in Ontario. And so I have both varieties growing on my property. Now, characteristically speaking, I'm filming by myself today, so I apologize for any jerky camera angles. The stalk is square. So what does that tell us? That tells us that this is in the mint family, the Lamiaceae family. Now that's a massive plant family, by the way, but at least it gives you a narrowing down point. Look, if we check much lower down here, you can actually really see the squareness of that stalk. There's something else you can see too. Do you see this powdery mildew? This is one of the challenges of working with wild bergamot. So Monarda fistulosa, and I think Monarda didyma too, which would be bee balm, are both susceptible to like a powdery mildew. Now, normally that happens later in the growing season, even if it's not wet, it tends to happen. But because we've had such a wet year, most of my plants out back where they get a bit more shade have powdery mildew all over them. And so in that case, I'm gonna head out front and hope that those ones are better, or I'll just work around the leaves. I don't want that in my medicine. But don't freak out if you see it. It's actually like a pretty common occurrence with Monarda species. It's one of the reasons why we want to try to get it fairly early in its flowering period to try to avoid that powdery mildew. But if you are in Ontario like I am and we're having record amounts of rainfall, there's just not much you can do about it. The mildew is even worse on these plants. So I'm probably not going to work with these ones except maybe to flower or harvest the flowers. So what I generally do is I harvest about the top 25% of the plant. And if you've been following me long enough, you know that I always discard the stalk because it is mostly inert. And look, my cat, this is Malfoy, and he likes to be in videos, and he just came here to hang out next to the bee balm. but I digress. So I harvest about the top 20 to 25% of the plant. And then what I do when I get inside is I cut the flower off and then I strip off the leaves. So whenever you're harvesting, you have to be cognizant, especially if you're doing things by weight. If you don't have my tincture guide, grab that below. That you're going to be discarding that stalk, which is weight, right? And so if you're trying to achieve a certain weight, keep that in mind. Yeah, because the stalk is mostly inert. Its job is to hold the plant up towards sun so it can do its photosynthesis magic, right? And it's mostly fiber. It doesn't have a lot of those medicinal properties that we're going for. So I discard it. So keep that in mind when you're harvesting your plant material. I came out front to check out my plants and they're actually doing better in terms of the mildew. Now, however, these ones haven't opened yet, as you can see. So now you're getting an idea of what the plant looks like before it's actually gone to flower. But you'll notice all these leaves are free of that powdery mildew. This one's just opened here. So why do I love this plant so much? Why do I love working with it? One, it's got some heat and some pungency to it, which I really like adding to every formula. Heat helps to drive the medicine to where we need it to go. But this is a fantastic carminative. So these are herbs that help support digestion. So it's got some warmth, some pungency. It's going to help with things like gas, indigestion, bloating, all that jazz. I also love having it in clinic for its respiratory properties. It's both a decongestant and an expectorant. So it helps to like thin mucus secretions so that the body can expel it more easily. This is common with things that have a bit of heat to them. Like think back to that last time you had those spicy wings or some like hot Thai food, or maybe you went out for like Korean kimchi, I don't know. And what happens? Your eyes water, your nose waters, like your nose runs. That's how these warming herbs tend to work. So I really love this one for respiratory conditions as well. See, he follows. He followed me out front because he wants to be on camera. Yeah, I already got him on camera before. Hubby came out to help me film, so this is great. This plant also has some really good nervous system properties, antidepressant, anxiolytic, so it's gonna help with anxiety. It's also what we call a vasodilator. So that's a fancy pants term for saying it helps to drive blood flow. And specifically, this one helps to drive blood flow to the brain. So this is really good for things like poor memory, poor concentration, brain fog, you know, like when people deal with things like chronic fatigue, I really like using this plant for that as well. We do have to be cognizant of the fact that it does have some female reproductive properties, stimulating wise, both towards the uterine muscle itself and to the hormones of the female reproductive system. So that's one of those contraindications you kind of have to navigate and just know that it does affect the system. That's not to say you can't use it. I just wouldn't combine it with a bunch of other herbs that also have a strong effect on the female reproductive system. So last but not least, this video would not be complete if I didn't talk about some of the things we have to navigate. I already mentioned, being cognizant of combining this with other herbs that have an effect on the female reproductive system. But we also want to be cautious when I have clients that are on oral contraceptives. Because this affects the hormones of the female reproductive system, I don't want to be responsible for any accidents that might happen. So whenever my clients come to see me and they're on oral contraceptives, I just warn them, maybe use a backup method. Because it affects the nervous system, we're also using it with caution in terms of antidepressants, anxiety meds, or any medications that affect the nervous system. And last but not least, because of those more stimulating properties, we don't use it in pregnancy. I just don't use it at all in pregnancy, just to be safe. He's now moved from one location to the other. This is mostly what Malfoy does these days. He sleeps. I hope you found this video on Wild Bergamot informative. I do have a herbal mini ebook, which I'll post in the description below too. If you want to snag, don't forget that free tincture guide that is also available. If you've got any questions or comments, remember, I cannot provide dosing or any specific diagnostic or treatment information, but I'm happy to help you otherwise. You know what to do. Leave those below. And stay tuned. I'm hoping tomorrow, actually, I don't know when these videos will go live, but tomorrow I'm going to film a remedy that will include Wild Bergamot. So stay tuned for that. And until next time, this is Corinne from Spiraea Herbs, wishing you health and wellness.